Do all emotionally sensitive people have emotional dysregulation? Not necessarily. Hello, my name is Dr. Francheska Perepletchikova. Today we will be discussing how emotional sensitivity can turn into emotional dysregulation. Now, according to research, 15 to up to 30% of people in the world have high sensitivity. That includes emotional, physiological, and social sensitivity. These people may indeed experience things and process information on a very different level with much more intensity. Sensitivity can also include inability to tolerate loud noises, bright lights, touch, specific tastes, smells. Also, these people may be at an increased risk of having high level of emotional tsunamis and have slow return to baseline, meaning that they experience very big emotional reaction to seemingly small stressors, and it may take a long time for them to come down and feel at a neutral or positive emotion. Now, that also presents with benefits. Emotional sensitivity also allows people to be able to read other people's emotions on a much higher level. They kind of like human x-rays, right? They can also experience high positive emotions, not only negative. Also, we all know that emotionally sensitive people are much more prone to be more empathic, understanding, caring to other people, then can appreciate other people's emotions so much better and read other people's emotions and be much more empathic, as well as they may have increased creativity. Now, not all emotionally sensitive people have emotional dysregulation. Not all of them encounter problems in daily living and have difficulty with functioning. And at the same time, they are indeed at a higher risk to developing emotional dysregulation, depression, anxiety, and sometimes goes all the way to developing personality disorders. So what can turn emotional sensitivity into emotional dysregulation? Emotionally sensitive children, we call them supersensors, are born with extra needs, so to speak, because of the inborn tendency to have much stronger emotions. And as we all know, children are not born with instructions. And parents, the environment, may not be prepared to meet the needs of these children. Now, emotional sensitivity is opposite to resiliency. Resilient children, they're like ducks in the water. All the water runs down their feathers. Supersensors, on the other hand, are more like rocks. They drown. Another way to describe it is resilient children may be born with strong psychological immunity, while emotionally sensitive children may be born with weak psychological immunity and may need to work to acquire that immunity. As we said, children are not born with instructions, and parents may not know what to do with them. Now, good enough parenting may be presented to these children, and most of the parents of children who are emotionally sensitive are well-meaning, loving, capable, and it can be seen very well with other children in those families doing really, really well. While the supersensor is having all kind of issues, climbing walls, so to speak. So what happens here is that good enough parenting is simply not good enough for emotional sensitivity. The biosocial theory tells us that there is this transaction between the emotional sensitivity, these children that are born with extra needs, with weak psychological immunity, with very weak resiliency to the external stressors. And these needs may not necessarily be adequately met by the external environment. And this transaction leads to two products: emotional dysregulation of a child and the development of what we called an invalidating environment. Invalidating environment is defined as that indiscriminately and pervasively rejects the reactions of another person, feeling, thoughts, behaviors, biological responses, as that not making sense. Invalid means does not make sense. I don't understand why you're reacting this way. An example: a child is playing with a friend. Friend broke her toy. Child got angry, pushed her friend. Friend got upset and left the house. Now, child is crying. Mom is coming up and saying, hey, punching your friend, pushing your friend is not a way to solve your problems. What happened here that mom invalidated the invalid. Indeed, pushing, punching is not a effective, valid way to solve problems. So again, invalidating the invalid. And then she adds, there is nothing to cry about. Now she invalidated the valid. Crying is a very natural, valid, understandable response to a loss. The child just lost a toy and a friend at the same time. So what mom was able to do here is invalidate both, the valid and the invalid. That's what's called indiscriminate invalidation. And when it happens over and over again, pervasively, then we can say that the environment became invalidating. Now, the reason why the environment may become invalidating through this transaction, the biosocial transaction between the child's needs and environment inability to meet these needs, stems specifically from the nature of emotional sensitivity. High reactivity, slow return to baseline. Indeed, a lot of the time, reactions of our supersensors may come seemingly out of the blue. It could be something small that may be imperceivable to the outside observers, or it can be an internal event, a thought, a memory, an association. So those reactions may happen a lot of the time all of a sudden. They may be disproportional in the intensity to the trigger, and it may take a very long time for a supersensor to come back to a neutral or positive mood. Therefore, all of these low threshold to the stimuli, very high level of reaction happening very fast, reaction taking a long time to go back to baseline, all of these may create a situation in which outside people who may have best intentions in mind, who may be capable, loving, responsive, they just simply don't get it. Why are you so angry? There's nothing to be angry about. Why can't you just stop it? Can you please just snap out of this? All of these are communicating to a child what you do, what you feel, what you think. Your biology does not make sense. We can't understand it. We can't get it. When an environment is not able to meet the needs of a sensitive child, it destabilizes the child even further. A more destabilized child is impacting further on the environment, destabilizing the environment. More destabilized environment, of course, impacts back on the child, and back and forth, back and forth. And through this, we indeed develop emotional dysregulation for the child and the environment that continuously less and less able to meet the demand of the increase in the emotional instability. Invalidating environment is not necessarily a starting point. Of course, there are times when parents may indeed be abusive or neglectful to begin with, but we, most of the time, not talking about this. We're talking about very capable parents that are just being extended to the degree in which they fail continuously to figure out how to help that child more. And the more they are unable, the more dysregulated their child is, the less they're able to meet the needs. And through this transaction, the child can develop not only emotional dysregulation, but can lead all the way to development of psychopathology. Indeed, research shows that emotional dysregulation can lead to substance use, alcohol use, suicidality, self-harm, depression, anxiety, development of personality disorders in adolescence and young adulthood. Emotional dysregulation does not tend to resolve on its own. Oh no, quite the opposite. With time, to cope with this high level of intensity of the emotional reactions that can be quite painful and can lead to tremendous suffering, supersensors tend to develop coping mechanisms that unfortunately do work short-term, but backfire long-term. When we're talking about suicidality, self-harm, alcohol use, drug use, screaming, yelling, these are not the problems in themselves. A lot of the time, they start as solutions to problems and then turn into problems in their own accord. Supersensors need to learn how to adaptively cope with their emotional sensitivity and high level of emotional arousal, and how to effectively solve their problems. And they need super parents to get supported in all of those efforts. Super parents that can help them in learning the techniques and acquiring a capacity to use those techniques. Super parents that will create a validating and change-ready environment. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. If you're a parent or you're a clinician and you would like to take courses with me, please look at the information provided below and comments. I hope to see you there.